Marking the recent mock exams has prompted me to make this video. Being a great physicist doesn't guarantee you the top grade in your GCSE, because with each exam paper comes the hurdles of exam technique. I hope this video will help you to feel more prepared to jump some of those hurdles. Tip 1. Timing. Allow a minute to mark, so if a question's worth 10 marks, stick to 10 minutes. Have a watch on your desk in the exam to help you stick to it. Start each question by answering the bits you're confident with, temporarily leaving the bits you can't do as you work through the question. Then, with the time you have left on that question, fill in every blank space with your best effort, guessing if you need to. If you sit staring at questions you can't do, you'll run out of time. Potentially, you'll run out of time and you won't get to do a question that you would have gained more marks from. As you get more confident from revising your core knowledge, you will get quicker, and practicing past papers will help too. You might even find that you can save a minute on several questions and free you up enough time to have a check through and perfect some of your answers before the exam is over. Never sit with a closed paper before the end of an exam. Use any extra time you've saved to check your work right up to the pens down moment. Tip 2. Read the question. I know this sounds obvious, but please remember I have just finished marking. For a question that says describe how the energy of a ball changes as it drops towards the sand, it's scary how many of you wrote about forces and terminal velocity in your response. How about this one? Explain what happens inside a nuclear reactor if the neutron speeds are not controlled. Highlight the relevant bit of the question, like energy or neutron speeds. Try and stay calm as you read, because stressed people misread questions. Tip 3. Use the clues, part 1. Use the clue in the number of marks available. They're clues. 2 marks for a written answer might require 2 key words or 2 core knowledge ideas or a core knowledge statement backed up with an explanation. Let's look at an example. The question here is worth 2 marks to explain how an aircraft can become electrically charged as it flies through the air. So for 1 mark, you're going to have to talk about friction, the aircraft rubbing against the air. And then for the 2nd mark, that this rubbing or friction is causing a transfer of electrons from one to the other. A transfer of electrons from the air to the aircraft, for example. And remember, in an equation question that's worth 3 marks, that's going to mean you're going to need most likely to rearrange the equation or change one of the units or state a unit for the 3rd mark at the end of your answer. Tip 4 is also use the clues, but part 2. Use the clues of language in the question. So, the language used can help you work out what you need to do. Command words like state are going to be worth 1 mark because they're asking you to simply recall. Explain is worth more because you need to apply your core knowledge and demonstrate your understanding clearly. Compare and contrast means what is the same about these 2 things and what is different between these 2 things. We're halfway there with tip 5. Reference the information that you're given. For questions that provide information in a graph or a table or a chart, for example, make sure you reference that information back into your answer. With a graph, use it. Take data points from it. Use the axes labels to make sure you include the variables in your answer clearly. Let's look at an example. For example, with the 2 components here, if we compare them, at 80 degrees Celsius, both of them have a resistance of 5,000 ohms. Let's contrast them. Component A shows as the temperature increases, the resistance decreases, whereas component B shows as the temperature increases, the resistance increases. One final comparison. Neither relationship is linear. In A, the temperature and the resistance are not inversely proportional, and in B, the temperature and the resistance are not directly proportional, because neither line is straight. Tip 6 is just for multiple choice questions. Decide what the answer should be and then look for it. If it's not there, then do the crossing out "this is definitely a wrong answer" and narrow down your choice. Let's look at an example. So from the formula sheet we can check GPE is equal to mgh, mass times gravity times height. So the relationship between gravitational potential energy and mass could be thought about as though G and H stayed exactly the same. As the mass increases, the gravitational potential energy would increase in step. This would be a linear way, proportional. So I'm expecting a diagonal line going straight up. Tip 7 is all about longer answer questions, like the 6-marker star questions. So for these big questions, you need to take a minute to think and plan first. Bullet point your core knowledge ready. One of my bullet points here would be short half-life. Then, as you write your answer, link the core knowledge, explaining your points in detail and being specific. So, short half-life to reduce the time the patient is exposed to radiation and so limit the risk to them. Then, when your answer is finished, reread the question and then your response, checking for anywhere you could add more scientific language. For example, to reduce the time the patient is exposed to the ionising radiation and so limit the risk to them. Remember, for these current exams, the 6-mark questions are 10% of the paper, and there's 2 of them. You should be using a minimum of 6 minutes on each of those questions, and hopefully you'll have banked yourself some time from other confident answers to spend more like 8 minutes on these 2 questions. Tip 8 is for those maths questions. Perhaps you'd like to watch my video, Top 10 Tips for Maths in Physics, and then with confidence you'll know you need to show you're working out step by step. Here's a good example of that. So this example sets out that working out beautifully. They've even checked that the answer makes sense, and that's always a good thing to do. But learn those units so you can make sure you can get the mark when they need adding. Charge is measured in coulombs, so it needed a capital C at the end here. Now, if you recognise this as your work, you were not the only one to drop this mark. Please be assured it was just the first example that I found at random. It's our penultimate tip, tip 9. A diagram can be useful in helping you explain your ideas. Diagrams can be really good as long as you make them clear and accurate. So let's look at my example. My carefully labelled diagram here would pick up all 4 marks on this question. We've made it to the final tip. Tip 10 is think. With good revision, you should be ready for the exam. Watch my top 10 tips for successful revision if you're not quite as on top of that as you should be. But then in the exam, you read the question and then you think. If you're stuck, you think a bit more. What's this topic all about? What do I know about this topic? Which bits of my core knowledge will help me answer this question? Physics is about applying your core knowledge, and you cannot do that without thinking it through. A good example to show you this is the one we used earlier from the mock paper. Explain what happens inside a nuclear reactor if neutron speeds are not controlled. So think, how is the speed controlled? Well, moderator rods slow down neutrons. Why do we need moderator rods? To increase the chance that the neutron will be absorbed in the next uranium nucleus and cause a fission. So, what if the speed isn't controlled? Well, then the neutrons will carry on going too fast, and that will mean they're less likely to be absorbed. so the rate of nuclear fissions will reduce. The nuclear reactions will slow down because there's less successful fissions. I do hope you found this video useful. If you did, please tell others about it. And if you do like the videos, please remember to comment and request future physics revision videos. Tell your friends about it so more people can see the channel, and let me know which topics you would find most useful to revise, because you know that
regular review gets a better grade for you.
Don't forget to
Like,
so that I can keep making the videos.
comment,
Especially to request other revision topics.
subscribe.
So you can get notifications of when my next video gets uploaded.